Vic's V8 video aluminum heads and intake manifold installation is being brought to you by Offenhauser, the greatest name in racing. By Speedway Motors, the best speed shop on the planet. By Tatum Custom Engines and Vintage Vendors, from mild to wild, flatheads for the future. And by American Collectors Insurance, coverage you can count on.
If you've seen any of the videos in our series, then you know just how I feel about flatheads. I love them, from bone stock to full race. I'm Vic Piano of Vic's V8 Videos, and I don't believe there's ever been an engine built that looks or sounds as good as a done-up flat motor. That's what Al Capabianca and I will be doing today here at Classic Corvettes and Collectibles. We're going to be removing the cast iron heads from my 47 Ford convertible along with the original intake manifold and doing a swap out with a set of absolutely beautiful Offenhauser Fend aluminum heads and an Offenhauser dual intake manifold topped off by a set of 94s that have been specially prepped by Dave Tatum. I can't wait to get started, so let's go find Al and get the show on the road. Well, I'm here at Classic Corvettes and Collectibles with Al Capabianca, and Al is the service manager, and I know you're probably all wondering, why are you doing a flathead video at Classic Corvettes and Collectibles? The reason is I've known Al for many, many years, and I've tried and tried to get him to work on flatheads. He's a Chevy man from way back, 30 years with Chevrolet, right, Al?
30 years.
Today, though, he's working on a real car.
Yeah, I am. A real flathead.
Today we'll be installing a set of Offenhauser heads on my 47 Ford convertible and an Offenhauser dual intake manifold capped off by a pair of specially prepared 94s put together by Dave Tatum. Okay, and our first step now in installing the heads, we've got to remove the old heads. Al and I have already drained the radiator. We've taken the upper radiator hoses off. We've taken off the generator. We've taken out the old distributor. We have taken off the intake manifold. And now, Al's going to show us a little trick on how to get the heads off.
Okay, we're going to remove all the head bolts, nuts. And what we're going to do is after we do that, we're just going to squirt a little penetrating oil around the threads. And then we're going to crank the motor over with the spark plug still in the hole. And it should pop both heads right off.
But now, Al, we're also going to leave 2 bolts on the head, halfway unscrewed.
Halfway unscrewed so they don't come off and hit the fender and scratch your fender.
Right. Now, we're cheating a little bit because we've got Al's shop. We've got all these electronic and power tools available to us. You at home can do this as well. You just got to use a little elbow grease and break those head bolts. Okay. Go ahead, Al.
A lot faster this way.
Ready?
Go.
She's popped. So once we turn it over and pop it, Al, then she comes up a little bit, and you got to kind of like get a pry bar in there.
Yeah, because you do have surface rust. You know, there is rust around the threads.
Well, now keep in mind too that this motor was built 6 years ago, and it's got 70,000 miles on it. So these heads have been on for a lot of miles.
More the mileage, more you can have dirt, little dirt, and crud around the threads and stuff. So, just take your time. Yeah, be careful. Don't pry real hard because you can bend the studs. And make sure it's cold motor. Do not do this with a warm motor.
Got it?
Mm-hmm.
The reverse switch is in the way.
No. This stud right here is the head gasket's the problem. It's hanging up on the head gasket.
Where, here?
Yeah, just sort that down a little bit.
goes.
All right, after removing the old heads, then you have to start your cleanup. Scraping the head surface and your intake surface, get them good and clean. And use a wire brush on a drill, electric drill, a regular household drill you can use with a little wire brush. And now you're going to use, to go back, after it's good and clean, you must use longer studs with the Offenhauser head. Okay, this is this tool. It's a stud remover. And it's very easy to do. It just slides on. And you use a 1/2 inch breaker bar or ratchet. And you just twist it off. And they come out. Okay. Use a lot of penetrating oil. And there's the stud.
What about preparation now when you go to put the new studs in? Should you coat the studs with anything before you put
Well,
them in
the
the block?
first thing you do is after you clean them with the wire wheel, the next thing I would suggest you to do is run a tap. Lots of times I run a tap down the threads to make sure the threads are good and clean. And then use a number 10 weight oil or automatic transmission fluid if you have it. A couple of drops on the threads.
And that'll do it.
That'll do it.
All right, so we should be ready to start doing that. But before we do that, we're going to change one water pump because we noticed that it was throwing oil out of the bearing.
Correct. And we're going to do that next. Okay. You may take that bolt down. There you go. Taking this bolt off, you should make sure.
Are you taking this thing?
Yeah, especially this bolt
Yeah,
inside
this is the most important one.
inside the radiator hose. It must come off.
Yeah.
Now, wire brushing.
And Al,
You never could be too clean. The reason? Besides wire brush, after I scrape it, I wire brush it, make sure there's no particles at all left on the block surface. Wipe it all down. It's nice and clean. There's nothing left on the surface to create a leak. Now I'm going to seal the gasket to the water pump. And I use a little weather stripping cement just to hold it in place. Just like that. And I seal it. I put the gasket on here, like that. Now I hold it in place by using your bolts, which you've already cleaned up. Just stick them in the hole to let them sit and set up. A lot of people use a different bolt in the bottom hole. They use a stainless bolt instead of your regular cast iron bolt. Now I let it set. Takes about a minute, minute and a half, and then I can put the pump on. Now removing the bolts, get the water pump back on. Sure you don't rip the gasket as you do that. Just turn them out. This way the gasket, you know, stayed in place. It did not move. Suchly. The water pump is part of the motor mount. And we're jacking it up a little more now just to line up these bolts correctly.
how's that, Al?
A little more. Okay, right there.
So this could be a two-person job
Yes,
here.
could be two-person. You have to have somebody help you, a good friend help you underneath the car. As you notice, there's no special tools being used on this job. No impact guns or anything like that. I screw these in by hand first so we do not break the ears off this pump. Because you can cock the pump very easily and create a leak without you even knowing about it, crack the housing. All right, like I said before, after I had them snug, now I'm going to check them with a torque wrench just to make sure is set. I set it at 35 pounds. Okay, now I got left to do on the water pump is now hook up the motor mount, and then from there, we're going to put the new studs in the block to hook up the heads, the new heads, the Offenhauser heads.
Well, we had a little trouble last night with the 47 Ford. As it turns out, the head studs that we replaced on the bottom row, those 10 studs, were fine, but the other studs were just a little bit too short. So what we've done, we pulled the head off, we ordered new studs. As a result, I couldn't drive the Ford home last night, so Al was kind enough to give me this loaner. Isn't this a great piece? Well, I'm going to go find Al now. We've got the new studs, and hopefully, without any further ado, we will be able to install the Offenhauser heads with the new studs. And we got another little trick going. We got 3 extended studs so that we could remount the original oil filter. We're not going to use the beehive, which I'm going to show you a little bit later. We happen to have an original beehive, which is called a filculator, because the whole aspect behind it was not only was it supposed to filter the oil, but it was also supposed to cool the oil as it filtered it. Well, let's go find Al and get things started.
Hi Vic, how'd you like the loaner? A little different, wasn't it? Well, as you know, we were back removing the studs out of the block, and we found the center studs were really hard to come out, and a couple of them snapped. So now we're going to take you through how we're going to remove the studs from the block. When you do this job, more than likely, you'll have the same problem that we ran across. What happens to the studs from the cold heat, softens them up enough, they snap right off. All right, the first step that I did is after I got everything ready to, I centered mark the stud, and I'm covered everything up so we don't get any filings anywhere. All right, now I'm going to drill it. I started with a small 16th drill bit. I'm going to go all the way up to a quarter. All right, take your time. You know, I'm using an air drill. You can use an electric drill to do this. It's not that difficult. They are fairly soft. One point I'd like to bring out, make sure you center punch it dead center, because if you don't, when you get up to the quarter-inch size drill bit, it will take your threads out, and then you'll really be in trouble. Then you have to helicoil it. Just make sure, just take a few minutes, make sure it's dead center in the middle of the broken stud. Now the one that we just found, that this stud is really in there, and before you break an easy out in there, apply a little heat, okay? You can use a Bunsen burner or any one of them little torches. Just apply a little bit of heat, because if you break this easy out in there, then you'll have to go get a diamond drill bit. Cost a fortune. Now, after we took the easy out and removed the piece, we're going to run a tap through the hole to make sure the threads are nice and clean. All right, all the way to the bottom. Bottom out the tap. Okay. See how nice and easy that goes? That makes sure it cleans out all the threads. Bottom it out. Don't put any force on it, because if you break the tap in there, you're not getting the tap out unless you have a tap remover. You cannot drill a tap out. It's too hard. Okay. Nice and clean. And if you have air at your disposal, blow a little air in the hole to make sure it's clean. If not, get a little liquid cleaner and clean it out. Do not leave any liquid in the hole. When you go to put the stud in, you can crack the block when you tighten it down. Do not leave any liquid in that hole. It's nice and dry. Now we're ready to start putting the new stud in. And we're going to show you, we're going to put the new stud in with Loctite on the threads going into the block. It does not hurt to put Loctite on all the studs. It will not hurt it. I mean, not a severe amount, a couple of drops, fine. Like I said before, do not use a lot of liquid in the studs when you go to put them on there. Just a couple of drops, just so it will not work its way back out. See how nice and easy that goes in, and it bottoms out. Now what I usually do with that is I take my stud remover, and which goes both ways, and I just tighten it up a little bit. As you notice, this is a new stud remover, all right? The reason because it's new, Victor had a little problem removing studs and broke my other one. So we had to run out and get another one. He was a little overzealous, shall we say? And this don't mean bear down on them real tight. All you do is just put them on there, set the stud remover in there, and you'll notice it'll turn a little bit, and then you'll feel it tighten up, like right there. From that point, just give it a little bing. All right, and wipe the excess off around the bolt, around the stud, okay? Okay, this one is done. And now I'll pull the tape off. And I know I haven't got any particles down inside that motor.
Only 23 left to go on this side.
No. This side is ready for the rest of the studs.
Okay, that side was ready for the rest of the studs, and Al completed the installation of all the studs in both sides of the heads with Loctite on every one of the studs. He then snugged them all up with his new stud remover tool, cleaned off the residue, and installed a head gasket. After the head gasket, the new aluminum head went on, complete with the washers. And I should tell you that all of the parts and suppliers that we're using in this video, we found through the Hemmings Motor News. And I would suggest, if you don't already have Hemmings, go out and get it right away. After Al put all the nuts on, he then snugged them down with a ratchet. Then on the other side, we reinstalled the oil filter line and found that we had to remove the mounting bracket for the backup light switch because the new head would not clear it to be mounted on the studs. Once that was removed, Al put a new gasket on, and the other new head went on the car. Well, if you haven't noticed, I'm sweating quite a bit. I think it's because it's hot in here, but it also may be because we've finally reached the point in the video where we put the heads on the car and we're getting ready to torque down the head bolts. But before Al shows us the proper sequence, or his sequence that he follows, I did a lot of research before I got into this project. I talked to people like Patrick Dykes of Patrick's Antique Cars and Trucks, Tony DaCosta from Hot Rod and Custom Supply, Hank Young of Joe Smith Antique Ford Street Rod Parts, and even Bill Smith of Speedway Motors. And with one exception, they all agreed that they follow the Ford factory sequence. Now, I even talked to Tay Offenhauser, and Offenhauser supplied us with the heads. Offenhauser follows the Ford factory sequence. Bill Smith from Speedway Motors told me that he torques the heads down from one end to the other. And if it works for him, it must be okay, because he's been racing and winning races with flatheads for over 40 years. At any rate, since we're putting on Offenhauser heads, we're following the sequence suggested and recommended by Offenhauser. Al, you want to get that torque wrench out?
That's right, Vic. We're going to torque these things down because Offenhauser said try the recommended Ford way of doing it, and that's the way we're going to do it, from the center outwards. And I do it in 3 steps. First step is 25 foot-pounds, then 35 foot-pounds, and then the final one is 45 foot-pounds. Okay? And we start from the center. You hear the click? That means we're 25 pounds.
Well, this is the modern style of torque wrench that you just dial it up, right, Al?
Right. You dial it in at the setting you want, and it'll click. Automatically clicks when you get to the pounds.
Not like the old one with the arrow.
No. That's a little obsolete.
That's the last one I used.
Oh, well.
I probably broke it.
I remember that. Let's put it that way.
I still have one.
I don't. Okay, now I'm setting at 35, and you repeat it again. All right.
And again, those 3 longer studs are so we can install the stock
oil filter.
Correct.
That's a must. Otherwise, you cannot do that with Offenhauser heads because of the fins. The nut will fit above the fin, and you can lay the oil filter down on it. This is my final setting at 45 foot-pounds.
Now, Al, let's say, for example, we weren't setting this up for a street motor, but we were going to do some competition running with it. We had a cam in it, we had a higher compression head. How high would you go, or would you recommend going on a torque sequence? What's the total foot-pounds that you would go up to? And what would be the significant difference in, let's say, if we were running a higher compression motor and we wanted to get maximum torque out of that motor in terms of, let's say, just drag racing with the motor, what is the benefit of going to a higher torque?
Well, not a higher torque. You have to also look at one other thing, what kind of head gasket you're going to use. That makes a big difference on your torque settings.
Okay, now the ones we have in here are composition head gaskets.
Right. They're called Permatorque. All you do is set them once, heat the motor, and they're permanently set. Now you have the copper ones, okay, which are the originals. They're very good, but the problem with them is after you torque them down once, after you do your torque sequence, after the motor's heated, you have to redo it. You have to redo the settings, go over them again. All right, in competition use, it depends on the thickness, basically. Depends on how much compression you built the motor up to. And on aluminum head, you have to be very careful on your torque settings. The most I would ever put on this head here would be about 75 pounds.
Okay, but for street use, what we're doing right now, and for most of the people that are watching the video, 45 pounds, and it's crucial that you do it in a 3-step stage.
Right. Especially with Permatorque gaskets. It sets it even, everything's set up.
And the ultimate hope is that we have no leaks.
We have no leaks. All right, now we finished torquing the heads down, so now what I'm going to do is put some of the cap nuts on, the chrome cap nuts that we got from Speedway Motors. What I'm going to do is just wipe that down so make sure there's no oil on here, and I'm going to put a little sealant for the gasket. After I wipe the surface off, I take the gasket and I just lay it on there to make sure it's correct. Okay? Don't go putting glue on it or anything like that until you're absolutely sure it's the correct gasket. This one's correct. Okay, now I'm going to put a little sealant on there to hold it in place, then we'll lay the manifold on. Wait a couple of minutes, and we can put the manifold on. All right, my gasket's set in place, and now I'm going to put the intake on and put the bolts in. Try to set it straight down on top of the bolt holes. All right, now I'm going to put the bolts in the holes, and run them down with my hand a little bit. Make sure I centered all the pieces. Start them like that, in no particular sequence.
Now, when you torque these down, Noel, you have to torque
Yes.
them in sequence?
Yes, you do. You start from the center, and you go X outward. Okay, now I said before, now we got them hand tight, and now we're going to torque them down, except for 4. 4, and we're not going to torque down because that's where your wire looms go for your spark plugs. And then after you get them set in place, then you can torque them down. Okay, like I said before, I'm going to run them down a little bit. Even when you run them down with the ratchet, start from the center and work your way out. All right, now I'm going to set the torque sequence on from the center outwards at 35 pounds. Now I'm going to install the fuel pump. Before I fasten anything down, I'm going to see how it fits, because there is modification you're going to have to do. As you see, you go to try to put it on, you cannot get it on. You must take the fuel pump bolts from the diaphragm, the screws, and go clockwise with it. 1 hole. Perfect. Look at that. Like it was made to go there. Here's the carburetors we're going to use. Dave Tatum's the one that set these up, okay? And he used an extra long shaft for your linkage, and gives you multiple linkage on here. And we're putting the first one on first, the forward one, to make it a little easier to get to the rear nut. Okay? These are the carburetors. They're really gorgeous, really well built. These are the stock 94 Harley carburetors, originally came on the vehicle, but they've been all reworked. They did a beautiful job on these. All right, now I'm going to bolt them down. Okay? Be careful of the washers. Don't let the washer roll down the intake manifold. Then you'll be removing everything.
I know what you really wanted to say is don't let Vic put the washers on, right, Al?
That's exactly what I meant. Because I don't have a magnet long enough to get all the way down in there. You really don't. You have to be careful.
The carburetors have been remanufactured to the highest standards of parts and workmanship. All fasteners have been replaced with stainless hardware, and all bracketry and linkage arms have been replated. Throttle base and main body parting surfaces are remilled. Long throttle shafts and throttle bushings have been installed for multi-carb linkage. Number 52 jets have been installed. However, it may be necessary to rejet due to climate, altitude, and our cam, compression ratio, etc. in your application. Also, the power valves have been removed and the passageways blocked off. This is necessary with multi-carb setups. However, for single carb application, the power valve must be reinstalled.
I want to make mention, you noticed I didn't put no gasket on these, okay? Gasket was already glued to the base of the carburetor. Okay, carburetor number 2, the rear one's going on. Now we're going to hook up the linkage. Very simple.
Now, on this type of a situation, when you're running deuces, you don't have progressive linkage, so you
No.
both act
Both
as
act
primary.
correct.
Well, does that necessarily mean I'm going to be making a lot more frequent stops at the gas station?
No. Just make it perform better.
But there should be no loss in gas mileage, just
No.
an increase in performance.
Performance only. This is not a gas killer. Multiple carburetors do not mean that you're going to lose a lot of gas. Just going to make the car operate more efficiently. All right, we're changing the gap on the plug from 28 to 30. Because what we're doing is we're going to put electronic ignition in. It needs a hotter spark. Okay? And do is put it in the spark plug, capper, press on it, and it's set. Also, when you put spark plugs in aluminum heads, put a little dab of Never-Seez on the threads. The reason for Never-Seez on the spark plugs is so we don't tear out the aluminum threads in the head. Well, tightening down the spark plugs, you don't really bear down on them real hard, is when you tighten them down, snug them down like I'm doing right now, okay, you feel it stop. Okay, when it stops, that's up against the washer. Just crush the washer. You can actually feel the washer crush as you give a little tension. And when that stops, that's it. Don't go any harder than that, especially on aluminum. Our next step is putting the fuel lines on, getting the fuel set up, then we put the distributor in, fire this baby up.
Well, you've all heard of an OEM, an original equipment manufacturer. What you're seeing here is an ACM, an Hellcat modification. We found that we had to reroute the heater hose because of the dual carburetors. The easiest way to accomplish this was to fabricate some copper tubing to cross over the intake manifold behind the carbs and connect it by heater hose to the water fittings on the head and the firewall. Always remember when you're hooking up any water connections to use brand new hoses and brand new clamps to ensure that you will have no leaks. Now, when you get ready to convert your car, be prepared to accept the challenge where modifications are concerned. Several factors, like the year of your car and the type of accessories, whether stock or aftermarket, will determine the number of modifications you'll need to make. It's a good idea to try and predetermine these modifications so that you'll have the parts and tools you need at hand to get the job done.
One of our modifications is we wanted to use the original oil filter and oil filter housing. We have to modify the lower return line. So that's what I'm doing right now, because I ran a new steel line from the oil pan up to the bottom of the oil filter. Now I just have to flare the end of it so I can put it in. When you're doing modifications, you'll see one modification will lead to another. modification, and you'll just keep modifying it as you go along. You'll run into a couple of little problems, like your fuel lines don't fit, and then you have to do that. Your heater hoses don't work. We modified that. All right, it's not really difficult to do, but if you don't feel comfortable with it, seek professional help. All right, what I'm using is they call it a double flaring tool. It's basically, most of the times you use a double flaring tool on brake lines. I like to use it on oil lines too. This way I know I ain't going to wind up with a leak. What that little thing right there does, it rolls the inside part of the steel tubing inwards to give it an edge. I'll show you. Let me just run this down. Oh. And now you take that back out. As you notice the tube, look at the tube is now rolled in. The edge is rolled in. And now what I'm going to do is flare it. And that's what they call a double flare. All right, before you set and put your flare on here, any part of the flare, okay, or any flaring tool, make sure you slide your fitting on the line, because there's no way to put that back on. Okay. Stock filter. We're going to mount it, same mount and everything. That's what we use the longer studs for, remember, in the head, except the 3 studs had to be extra long. That's so we could mount this on top of the head nut. And use separate nuts for that. If you notice while I'm putting this on, there is no spark plugs in the holes right near the filter. You can have a tendency when you're tightening up these mounting bolts, you could hit that spark plug and crack the porcelain and have a miss in the motor and not even realize you did it. So, better be safe than sorry.
Well, as Al just mentioned, we have reinstalled the original oil filter. What I'm holding in my hand, wrapped up in this clear plastic, is an original Filculator or beehive oil filter. Now, these things are extremely rare in their original condition. My friend John Brown was kind enough to loan me this one for the purpose of the video. However, they are remanufacturing these beehive oil filters, and Patrick Dykes of Patrick's Antique Cars and Trucks is the man responsible for it. The piece he has is absolutely gorgeous. So if you'd like to install one of these beautiful period pieces on your flat motor, or on your Chevy stove bolt, or on your 283, or even on a Chrysler Hemi, all you need to do is get a hold of Patrick's, and he can set you up with one.
Here's our old distributor. We removed the old distributor. Now we're going to put in the new electronic distributor, Mallory. All right, this distributor is self-contained. There is no black box to it. All you do is hook it up. There's a wiring diagram that comes with it. It's very simple to do. There's a 3-wire system, and everything's contained right in the distributor. The back of the distributor has 2 little ears on it, which are off-centered, so you cannot put it back in wrong. Cannot get in there back wrong, no matter how big your hammer is. You cannot get it in backwards. All right? With this Patrick Mallory distributor, you can set the timing on this car with the motor running as long as your blade isn't on. okay, is like a conventional distributor. You can turn it. It is slotted, okay? And always adjust with a vacuum gauge. You do it right off the port on your intake with a vacuum gauge to get maximum torque, maximum horsepower. All right, now I'm going to install new spark plug wires because we had a miscalculation on the height of the looms. Vic cut the other wires a little too short, so now I got to put new ones in. All right, we're using 7mm wires, all right, because of the electronic ignition system. And also the looms are set up for 7mm wire. All right. Very easy to just slide right in the tube and you hook them right up. Also, what I explained to you is, well, putting these wires in is a good idea to use some silicone inside the looms. Just spray it in there. They come in little spray cans of silicone, and it makes the wire slide in there easier. Now, as you know, we're putting new spark plug wires on, and it's a universal set is what we're using, okay? And you have to pre-fit the one end. The spark plug end comes already on the wire, but the part that goes into the distributor doesn't. And if you can see that, just a wire, and what I'm going to do is trim it, put the boot on it, and put it in.
Okay.
Okay, now I trim it back. I go back 1/4 inch, so there's enough so I can fold it over like that. Okay, now I put my end on like that, and you fold it over with a pair of pliers and clip it down. Before you cut the wire, make sure you put it up against wherever you're going to run it to be correct. You know, your length is correct. Don't use your old wire as a guide. All right, I'm hooking the coil wire up now, which is a special coil that goes with this Mallory ignition system. All right, now we're putting the 12-volt battery back into our system because we converted everything, okay? And don't forget, negative ground. Okay, I got this battery from Ace Auto Parts and all the 12-volt bulbs from Ace Auto Parts. All right, and again, I'm going to remind you again, make sure you're negative ground. It's a good idea when you have your battery out, your battery tray is usually dirty and peeling, clean it off and spray it with some rubberized paint. You can buy that in any auto parts store. There we are. Okay, now we're going to set the timing on here. It's a little loud, but I hope you can overhear. I hope you can hear me. All right. What we did is we hook up the timing, check the timing with a vacuum gauge, and you get maximum vacuum. Okay. We set the distributor directly in the middle. Okay, and we wound up with 21 inches of vacuum, which is right on the money. Okay. This distributor, like we said before, is adjustable. So if you didn't come up with that, you can turn that distributor and set your timing till you get your maximum vacuum.
Well, as Al said, we lucked out when he installed the Patrick's Mallory electronic ignition. We didn't even have to tweak it. It was dead on 21 pounds on the vacuum. Now, for the final touch, these absolutely beautiful Stelling and Helling reproduction air cleaners made by Evil Ed in Racine, California. And Ed, I gotta tell you, these things are just gorgeous. I am so happy to be finally placing them on top of the car. Things of absolute beauty. All the other dress-up stainless parts, like the upper radiator hoses, the generator cover, and all the head and intake manifold acorn nut covers were provided by Speedway Motors. Okay, now you'll notice I'm not tightening these things because Al won't let me touch any of his tools anymore. After Al finished installing the air cleaners and before we put the hood back on, we took the Ford for a test drive. She almost looks like greased lightning. Everything worked perfectly, and like Al says, no leaks. At this time, I'd like to thank all of the people that provided parts for the making of this video and give you the phone numbers to get in touch with them in case you'd like to perform the same magic on your Ford. Tony DaCosta of Hot Rod and Custom Supply at 941-574-7744. Hemmings Motor News at 1-800-CAR-HERE. That's 1-800-227-4373, extension 550. Patrick Dykes of Patrick's Cars and Trucks at 520-836-1117. Hank Young at Joe Smith Antique Ford and Street Rod Parts at 1-800-235-4013. Speedway Motors, 402-474-4411. Dave Tatum of Tatum Custom Engines and Vintage Vendors. Dave can be reached at 360-424-8314. And Ford Parts USA, 1-800-435-5936. Harvey Alexander at Dennis Carpenter Reproductions, 1-800-476-9653. And Evil Ed at 818-709-1343. And special thanks to Tay Offenhauser of Offenhauser Industries.
Well, Vic, now that you got the heads on and the 12-volt system in, what more can you wish for?
Al, I only wish you were a great-looking blonde. Al, you never look so good.
Vic, you know how much time and money can be involved in a restoration project. That's why it amazes me how some people can restore a car and then not buy proper insurance for it. I don't mean remembering to add the car to your regular auto policy. I mean buying special insurance from a classic car insurer like American Collectors.
Well, American Collectors has been insuring antique and classic cars since 1976, and today it's the recognized industry leader. American Collectors has been in business for over 20 years because the coverage its policy provides is simply the best you can buy. Plus, American Collectors' rates are extremely competitive. Believe me, I couldn't sleep at night if I knew my collector cars were protected by regular car insurance.
If you want insurance that guarantees the full value of your collector car,
And if you want to pay a fraction of your current auto insurance rate,
you need to call American Collectors today at 1-800-360-CARS. For more information and a free, no-obligation rate quote, that number again, 1-800-360-CARS.
wow, beautiful and smart too.
Vic's V8 video aluminum heads and intake manifold installation has been brought to you by Offenhauser, the greatest name in racing. By Tatum Custom Engines and Vintage Vendors, from mild to wild, flatheads for the future. By Hot Rod and Custom Supply, where they don't just sell parts, but parts of history. And by Dennis Carpenter Reproductions, made right, fit right, last longer.